6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I farted.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely didn't.
Ready?
I can review. Making review. Making review.
Say 6,
6,
5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to episode 231 of Rank and Review, Scrappy Pictures Volume 2. And I gotta start off by apologizing to my listeners. Originally, this was going to immediately follow Scrappy Pictures Part 1, but life, as it tends to do, got in the way. So, it took a while to get it recorded, and it took a while to get it edited, and now I was sitting on it, and one of the few benefits of me screwing up in this way is that I can make a couple of corrections. During this episode, I talk about a movie called Girlfight and the director Karen Kusama, and I think I say she has like a career in television now, and I'm a little bit dismissive of her post-Girlfight directing work. But the true fact is she directed a movie called Jennifer's Body and another movie called The Invitation, both of which I like very much. So if I sounded dismissive of that director, I shouldn't have. She has actually had a more impressive career to me than Michelle Rodriguez, the star of that particular film. Another thing that I do, because I'm an idiot, we're talking about a movie called The Best of the Best. And I'm going on and on about how this is like an early 90s movie that's just stuck in the 80s. Because in my head, for whatever reason, this movie came out in 1992. But upon doing due diligence, Best of the Best actually came out in 1989. It is a legitimate 80s movie, so I'm an idiot. Now I've made these corrections, I can take this noose from around my neck and step down from the chair and get back to the business of welcoming you to Rank and Review and warning you that this episode about Scrappy Pictures will have spoilers and coarse language. I'm joined by Mr. Salvador Frank once again, and yeah, it's a theme of martial arts kind of movies, conflict kind of movies, movies that have fight. As always, you can send your feedback to ranknreview@gmail.com. That's RANKNREVIEW@gmail.com. The website is Ranknreview.ca. And Rank and Review drops every other Wednesday, so check out Rank and Review every other Wednesday. I'll talk to you a bit more at the end of the episode, but let's let this thing get started. Let's fight. So I've learned a few things. You gotta be careful of trusting people named Salvador. Originally we were gonna do these back to back, but time and life and everything got in our way, so we made you wait for part 2. I apologize, but Salvador Frank is back.
We're here.
And we're gonna talk about 6 more Scrappy Pictures, and just like last time, I have selected 3 movies. You have selected 3 movies, so I thought a good way just to get the introduction done would be if we each just told why we picked these particular movies. And since you're my guest, I guess I'll let you go first.
Okay.
You chose Best of the Best,
I did.
Billy Jack, and I guess it's Shogun Assassin, but Lone Wolf and Cub
Correct.
is the original title of it.
Right.
We'll get into it when we review the movie.
Right.
But so those are the 3. Why these Scrappy movies?
They were influential to me when I was growing up. I remember seeing them, and I remember loving them. And I thought in addition, there's some modern significance now to those titles, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about them.
Okay. Anything specific about each one? Like,
well, it's Lone Wolf and Cub. That Star Wars, particularly The Mandalorian, has completely ripped off that movie scene for scene. Lone Wolf and Cub, it was a series, many movies, in addition to just the first two that they turned into Shogun Assassin. But again, they were influential. There was sort of a genre that followed the popularity of that. Your samurai, not just a kung fu movie, but more of a samurai movie.
it's kind of feels like an Eastern Western, if that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then Best of the Best for me came out at a time when I was just starting into my kickboxing foray.
Right.
And it spoke to me, and I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do. So yeah, it has a little personal connection.
Absolutely. And then, of course, Billy Jack.
Billy Jack. I remember so many things about Billy Jack, which we'll get into deeper, but a lot of childhood memories from Billy Jack.
Right.
And later on in life, I learned to appreciate and understand that it actually had significance in its time.
It carried weight. It certainly did. And it was like Billy Jack appeared in a series of movies.
Yeah. And
for a while he was everywhere. And now he is nowhere. And I think that there's probably a reason for that.
And we'll get to that.
Going to talk about it. Okay, well, my selections were a little bit different. Obviously, I had a different list of 6 movies that was all Scrappy themed that I sort of cut in half for this. And in this half of the mix, we have a couple of interesting ones. One of them is making me question the whole purpose of film criticism. This Girlfight movie with what's her name?
Michelle Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez, thank you. I can't believe I blocked on her name because she's been coming up a lot on the podcast lately. It's just interesting how you can watch a movie 2 times in 2 different places in your life and have 2 completely different kind of reactions to it. And that being the case, what is the point or purpose of film criticism? If 3 months later you would give a completely different review, or 3 months earlier you would give a completely different review, I don't know, it's starting to mess with my head a little bit. Plus I put this in your hands, so of all the movies that we're going to talk about today, Girlfight is the one that I've gone the longest without actually putting my eyes to, so I'm going to confess that. I'm not basing it on the memory of the movie. I did watch the movie again for this podcast, but because of the time it's taken, it was five or 6 months ago now.
And for me, it's only been 2 days.
Right. So you have a little bit of an edge there.
Yeah.
The other one that's kind of an interesting pick is Chocolate. It's from the same director as Ong Bak. And
the one that we earlier reviewed.
We reviewed that in the previous Scrappy episode. And I do think that this guy is really good at handling action. And the question is of the exploitation or the use of autism or mental illness. It's a touchy thing. And I know that this movie is just trying to be fun and silly, and I want to let it be that, but we're going to talk about it.
We will talk about that, because you and I both have a
personal connection.
We do.
Yeah. And then we're going to talk about a Best Picture winning The Fighter, starring Mark Wahlberg. This is from David Russell, and he's directed all sorts of movies. He did 3 Kings with George Clooney. He did the I Heart Huckabees. There was I'm trying to remember, the Silver Linings Playbook was another big one for him. And this would have seemed something out of his wheelhouse. And it's sort of presenting itself as a nouveau Rocky. And it certainly was well received. But is it the nouveau Rocky? Will be right. The question that we have to ask. Also, I think there's interesting things to be said about the acting in that movie.
Yes.
So those are the movies that we're going to be discussing today. Is there anything else you wanted to say by way of introduction before we...
No, let's jump in.
Once more for the cheap seats, we're going to be talking about Billy Jack, Chocolate, The Best of the Best, Girlfight, Lone Wolf and Cub, and The Fighter. I remembered all of them.
Just testing you.
You worked with King, didn't you?
Yes.
Where is he?
Dead.
And where's Bob and Jack Kennedy?
Dead.
Not dead, their brains blown out.
I don't care about all that. I just don't want you to go out and commit murder.
Mr. Johnson, when's the last time you cut your hair?
When's the last time you brushed your teeth, sir?
They'll kill you, Billy.
An Indian isn't afraid to die. Don't ever expect a white man to understand that.
Hey, Billy.
Not armed. No tricks.
And I know that you're only doing it because of the love you have for the kids. And me.
Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. What the angel winds blowing, come the judgment day of the bloody morning after.
So I think in order to appreciate Billy Jack, you got to understand some historical context. This is based off of several. It's a series of films. Is that my phone or yours?
That was mine. I'll say.
There's a whole series of films, The Trial of Billy Jack, but the character is a half Navajo man who injects himself with a bunch of hippies at this commune and basically becomes their
Protector?
head and protector, you know, like he's sort of like the conscience, the moral center, and the physical heavy of the movie. Watching it, now all sorts of things flood into my brain. It's impossible to live through the time period that I have and not be aware of the song One Tin Soldier.
Right.
But I had no idea that it was from this movie, and I had no idea how much it was played in this movie. It was just like,
oh yeah,
even like I've always felt like that song was a little heavy-handed and on the nose, which is to say incredibly appropriate for this movie. But I think even if you like that song, by the end of this movie,
you've heard enough.
You're done. You've had enough.
You've had your fill of that song. Yeah.
And I think even if you like hippies doing, improv exercises, by the end of this movie, you're over it. And I think even if you are impressed by the martial arts, which I guess is in the sort of same vein as we talked about Enter the Dragon,
yeah,
where the fights are solid for their time, but maybe don't hold the same punch, to use the expression, as they would now. Nothing has really aged well about this at all. And the stuff that didn't age well, the proselytizing, the smugness, the just unbelievable arrogance of it is repeatedly slapping you in the face. Like, I have to confess, this was a hard sit for me.
Okay. I watched it out of nostalgia and was thinking, wow, I used to like this at one time. It has not aged well. And I think you and I both spoke about this, that you could cut 1/3 of that film out and still have the same movie. Yeah. There's so much extra, almost like propaganda and preaching at you. In today's, it'd be a woke movie, very woke.
Again, I didn't get caught up in the wokeness of shit. Like, I really think people talk political correctness, wokeness, it's going to be the end of the world. And they've been saying it for 50 years.
Yeah.
And it's not been the end of the world. So I'm not a believer in it. It's the empty proselytizing. This white man speaking on behalf of the native people and the oppression. And as much as, like, I like the idea of the hippie free love lifestyle, and if I had a choice between Vietnam and free love hippie, sign me up for the free love hippies. But I found them all fucking insufferable. Insufferable.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to go for this cool hand Luke thing towards the end, where he like sacrifices everything for him, and watching it with modern days, whereas I don't so much see this as a woke movie, almost the opposite of it, honestly. This guy is their protector. He is their guardian angel. And without Billy Jack, they are fucked.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Like, the world is going to tear them apart. They have nothing going for them.
So all those scenes that we were talking about with the hippie improv that they were going through and stuff, what value did it add to the movie?
Time. I honestly felt like padding to me. It felt like, let's get this to 100 minutes.
It was painful to watch. And interesting that what's his name from WKRP in Cincinnati there, the DJ,
right? Dr. Johnny Fever.
Dr. Johnny Fever was in there.
Good. Actors got to eat, and he is right in that hippie. Like, he is well cast.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
he's fine. Like, again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it away from him. And, like, even the dude playing Billy Jack, like, he looks tough, and he delivers the lines with a straight face, which could not have been easy.
Well, I think he actually believes his shit.
Yeah, you think he was all in?
I think so. In real life, I think he believes his shit, because I think he wrote it, and he fought to finance it. Like, he was the major driving force behind this movie. It was all him.
And it's weird because you would think it would be about the hippie value system or protecting this culture of the Native Americans, but it's all about him.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about him. And the bad guys are so ridiculously over the top bad, throwing flour over the brown skin of the kids that make them look the right color. Like, even the most unapologetic racist is not that much of a fucking asshole.
In public, in the middle of the town.
They just don't wear it that proudly. I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
Either maybe I'm naive and I've never seen it. Like, I'm a white boy, what can I say? But like, nothing in the movie holds credible, and some of it comes close to hysterical.
And isn't that funny that from our lens now today we look back on and we have all these criticisms, yet on its second release, it went, people just went bananas for it.
Yeah,
they loved it. I was reading that like it was one of Elvis's favorite movies.
Yep.
Different times, man. I guess.
And talking about going into the fighting specifically, because this is the Scrappy episode.
Right.
They do a lot of these slow motion moves, right? And I thought, well, that's kind of cool because sort of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But then the more I watch it, the more I'm thinking, there's a reason they're doing this in slow motion. Because if they showed it at standard speed, it would not be impressive.
No.
They're actually doing these moves slow, and slowing them down makes it feel like there's more impact, but it makes it easier on the stunt performers. And maybe it was a trick that people used to see through, but I saw... I'd not see through, but I saw right through it.
Well, I'm not sure if you'll agree with me, but of all of these 12 movies that we've reviewed, it is probably the lightest for fights.
Yeah.
Like,
I was surprised.
When you break it down, there's actually not a lot of martial arts action.
A lot of standoffs, a lot of nose-to-nose confrontations.
Okay, and that leads me to the best part. The redeeming thing of that movie is I'm going to whoop you upside your face and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Again,
Come on, that's an awesome scene.
I'm going to do this, it's going to happen, and you're helpless to it. And he kicks him in the face, and it is maybe the best action sequence of the movie. It's also 35 seconds long.
Yeah, exactly.
But, again, like, it seems strange in the values that this movie is representing that what we want is a character who can kick a police officer in the face with impunity and not get... And by the way, he does immediately pay for it. Like, when he says there's nothing he can do about it, all of his guys hold him down and beat the shit out of him, and I think that does technically count as doing something about it, Billy Jack. Like, it was a badass moment, but there was no follow-through.
Okay, and throughout the movie, him and his friends suffer a lot of repercussions.
Yes.
For all this, and then that brings me to the end. What a letdown ending.
He turns himself in to save the community,
and they walk away. Yeah.
A woman is raped. A woman is capital R raped.
Right.
And she's willing to let it go for the good of the community because she doesn't want more fighting.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Like, wow. And maybe, again, if we understood more about the community, like we understood that they do these terrible drama exercises and they sing, cheesy songs like One Tin Soldier, but like, do they represent anything other than let's live on a farm, do drugs, and have sex? Like,
yeah.
So Billy Jack is trying to be, and again, I got this, there's a lot of Cool Hand Luke influence, the Paul Newman, he's sticking it to the man,
right?
And even though he's in jail the whole time, we cheer for him despite his attitude because, well, it was Paul Newman. Billy Jack is no Cool Hand Luke. It's not even close. And Cool Hand Luke was sort of like quietly bucking a system, knowing that it was impossible odds, where Billy Jack seems to really think he's got all of this by the balls. He turns himself in because it's for the good of the community, but it's all this honor me, honor me, honor me. And I think it's telling that you say that this was all one guy putting these things together, because that just speaks of ego, ego, ego.
I think so. Yeah.
And I wonder if that turn ever happened over time. Like 10 years later, people are still digging it. 20 years later, I think people had to start noticing there's cracks. 30 years later, 40 years later, when does this guy actually have the epiphany? Like, oh my God.
Well, if you look, I think, at his IMDb movie history, it doesn't go very long.
Not past this, hey?
No. Well, a few more movies after this and some other appearances, but he doesn't have a long list of credits. I think he stale dated very quickly. which is interesting that he was an Indigenous hero, a role model.
Right.
Many of the friends that I grew up with loved Billy Jack. It was something that they weren't seeing in regular movies, right? He's Indigenous like them, although light-skinned in this movie.
And the actor is not native for the
He
record.
is not. No,
It's
no, he's
just
playing
the character.
He's playing the character. But my friends in elementary school, they loved Billy Jack. I even remember, hey, want to come over to our house and play Billy Jack? And I'm going, what is that? It sounds like fun. And they explained to me what Billy Jack is. I go over to their house. The game of Billy Jack consisted of jumping on furniture and doing flying drop kicks in each other's faces. Just kicking the shit out of each other for
Good,
fun.
wholesome fun for
Like kids, absolutely. But my point being that Billy Jack was huge for a lot of kids a little bit before me, and I kind of got in on the tail end of it. I was introduced by some older kids,
Right.
And that's where my affinity for the Billy Jack movie came
And
in.
again, I don't mean to shame you or anything like that at all. I have a sort of different end of the spectrum. When I was a kid growing up, I was really into the John Hughes comedies, Weird Science, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, all the things directed right at, well, they were older than my age group, but because I was a little kid, I wanted to be where
Right.
they were. And you watch Weird Science or 16 Candles now, and there is a lot of shit in there that would not be filmed today,
No.
would not fly today, is completely... But I still have this residual affection. Like, I will even defend, like, yes, Weird Science is very problematic, but it also puts a smile on my face, and I can't change who I was at that time. So, I mean, I'm glad you're more or less agreeing with me, but it doesn't sound like you're still clinging to Billy Jack. It seems like you've kind of made your peace with it.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't hold up well. It has some nostalgia, and it has a few scenes like the I'm going to whoop you upside your face scene.
Yeah.
I love that. That whole 30 seconds, I could watch that over and over again. But to endure the whole movie, not so much.
There is a pretentiousness, a smugness, and a shrillness that I found really, really hard to take. And then when you're away from those scenes, then we go back to, like I say, the bad hippie improv.
Yeah.
And the uncomfortable, I got raped, but it's okay, shit happens scenes. And like...
Did it feel like they were maybe when filming, improving the movie?
I would bet money, at least for those scenes.
Right.
Like, obviously the confrontation with the sheriffs was scripted.
Right.
But like,
Some of those
I would
other scenes?
say half of the scenes with the hippies, they were just making up as they went along.
Sure, they
and
kinda
it
maybe-
looks and feels like it.
Exactly. They kind of had an idea, and let's just go for it.
And just the same scene would happen again.
Yeah.
We just saw this scene, and now this is a variation of that same scene. Like,
Yeah.
it's the idea of completely undisciplined screenwriting. If it was screenwriting, I agree with you. I think they were just making it up, but good enough. We got to pad the runtime.
Right.
And I'm not a believer in that. I mean, it's kind of come to the other end of the spectrum now. Instead of like, let's just let the camera run and let the actors find the scene. Now it's, we'll fix it in post. We'll add shit to it later on to make it work.
Right.
You know, and either way, lazy. Come in with a plan, and if you don't have a plan, it's your fault.
And that's where I stand. You could cut a third of this film off.
Yeah. It might be a watchable short film, but I'm only going to say might. Is there anything else you want to say?
No,
about
man,
it?
we're done. We're
I'm
done beating
sorry
that
if I
up.
spanked
No,
you,
no.
buddy. Okay, so full disclosure, I am the parent of an autistic child. Tristan's on the autism spectrum. He's got high communication skills. A lot of times when people picture an image in their head of what an autistic person looks like, well, that's not what my son looks like. It's sort of a saying in the autism community, if you meet one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. It's an incredibly broad spectrum. My wife and I have joked, like, everybody's on the spectrum. There's just an area of the spectrum that we qualify as normal, and the area of the spectrum that we qualify as autistic. So, Look, I have a personal connection to this, and I resent when a movie doesn't take it seriously or uses autism as a superpower, which happens so much.
Yep.
So much.
Going back to Rain Man and I can't even...
Yeah, like even Rain Man, like it's well-meaning. You can tell that its heart's in the right place,
Yep.
but it's still, you know, it's still trying to make the most entertaining autistic person possible,
Right.
and soften it
Yep.
as in this way. And I understand watching Chocolate that all they're trying to do here is look at a different way to approach the fights, and they do use the autism, and one of the characters has I don't know if it's like Tourette's or this.
Yeah, he's got some quirks.
Weird sort of excess quirkiness that he has to incorporate into his fights.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not seriously trying to tell us a story about what it's like to be autistic, what's like to raise an autistic person. They are trying to reinvent ways to approach fight scenes. And I can kind of look past it and try to enjoy the movie on that level, which I do believe most people will be able to and can and maybe should be able to do. I do think some of the choreography is intensely clever, and I like the idea of the movie, I guess, isn't without merit completely, but it's hard not to feel, I don't know if condescending is the right word, it just doesn't seem appropriate. Like, even if they did all of this and just didn't mention it, just like she was different, there was something about her that was off. Like the fact that she can watch somebody sword fighting for 30 seconds and then she's instantly an amazing sword fighter, that she can watch people doing, exercises, training in martial arts, and she's suddenly intuitively this amazing martial artist. No. I can appreciate the action sequences and how they're handled, and those things are good. And if you want to watch an interesting action spectacle and just watch it for that, okay. I will say that something has happened, because this is after Ong Bak and The Protector, and I think that the quality of the filmmaking, especially outside of the fight scenes, has actually gone down a little bit. I don't know if it's a budget or if they were taking a risk. This isn't Aja here. This is some unknown. But I didn't feel the polish or the budget put into this that were in The Protector and Ong Bak. The fight scenes work. Pretty much the rest of the movie I think you can skip past. And a lot of people will watch martial arts movies that way. A lot of people just, in any martial arts movie, will be bored or irritated by the interstitial scenes and just want to get to the next fight. Hell, I'm sure I did that when I was a kid. Fast forward to the next action sequence. And I never endorsed that as a way to watch a movie until today. If you want to watch Chocolate, by all means watch Chocolate. Don't take it seriously, don't take it personally, and watch it only for the action scenes. And only on that basis will I recommend it.
I had never heard of the movie until you recommended it.
Right.
I didn't know what I was getting into until I started watching it.
Right.
You kept it a secret, and I think you even, hey, just go into it.
Yeah.
And here's the autistic thing. And for my disclosure, too, I helped raise 2 autistic foster boys. So there's that connection, too. And we both agree that
it's not handled well.
It's not that part's not handled well. And I agree with you, it is a tool, a vehicle to explain her abilities. You have to suspend your reality and just watch it for what it is. Good fight scenes.
Yes.
Reading some of the reviews online, it's mentioned many times, not the strongest story.
Right.
But that's not unusual to many, many, many martial arts movies.
No.
You're
Enter
not,
the Dragon doesn't have the strongest
right?
story.
You're not there for the storyline. Again, that's just a very weak foundation, and we're just going to watch somebody kick some ass. And I think that holds up. I thought the fight scenes were really inventive, cool. There were some new moves we haven't seen before. And I thought the actress did very well, especially learning that she did just about all her own stunts, and took the licks for it, too. She was injured, and
3 people were sent to hospital during the production of this film.
Yeah.
Like seriously injured.
But that is not something unusual for Thai
movies,
Thai or some of the other East Asia movies. Like stunt people are disposable, and it's not unusual.
They want to get hurt, I have read, because if you can do stunts all day, but if they don't use the footage, they don't use the footage. But if they use the footage, you get paid, and if you get hurt, you get paid.
Yeah, yeah. I went at the beginning. I'm reading the pre-credits, and they kind of almost do an apology or an explanation of the autism thing, right? And okay, I'm going, oh, this is about an autistic martial artist. Okay, and after a while, at the beginning, I should say, I was feeling mixed feelings about it. Am I going to like this? Is it going to piss me off? And as the movie went on, I felt they respected it to a point. They didn't play it up as much as I, going into it, thought they would.
It's also impossible to take fully seriously.
Right.
Like, it's not Rain Man.
No. I thought it was going to bother me more at the beginning, but they dealt with it not too bad, I guess. And again, suspend your belief that this is reality.
Not that this is the only interesting and weird corner to the movie, too. The villains group is made up entirely
of ladyboys,
of cross-dressing men, which I do not see a lot in Thai movies.
No.
And it was definitely a choice. And it was like, it took maybe a couple of scenes of double take. Like, that's a dude. And that's a dude. They're all dudes. What's going on?
So for me, I did the double take, and then I went straight to my source, IMDb, and I started looking up the actors. But there isn't much on them, because I wanted to see, like, are those cross-dressing?
Why that choice?
Right.
Like, that's an interesting choice, but why? Especially because the leader of the cult is obsessed with Chocolate's mom, right?
Yeah.
So he seems like decidedly heterosexual, but his entire gang is not.
Yeah, he's surrounded by, well, in Thai terms, ladyboys.
Yeah, and it's not heavily addressed. It's just kind of
it's just
like
there. It's there.
And if you're gonna do that, it seems like you would address it, or you would like do it for a reason. You would have a card to play when it came to this. And nope, that's just a choice. An interesting choice. But it didn't really like contribute much more than that. It was an interesting choice.
And you know what was interesting to me too, that I had never heard of this movie.
Okay.
Considering the tie-in to On Back and all that stuff.
Right.
And I, how did that completely miss my radar?
I don't know if it was a bigger movie on the other side of the ocean or not, but like I say, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm very much mistaken, or maybe it was released here after them, but he'd done The Protector and On Back, which I think had much more polish to them. And then this, right?
Yeah, so probably much bigger productions.
Yeah.
And he's kind of trickling off.
Right.
However, I would say that if this popped up on one of those late night movies, I'd watch it again.
Yeah. Again, I didn't mean to come out so hard on it, but I felt like it was the elephant in the room that I needed to address.
Yeah.
Right? If it's going to rub you the wrong way, then if you know that going in, maybe you can avoid it. But as a father of an autistic son, I was able to get past it, but not to the point where I wasn't going to pretend that it wasn't there.
Right.
You know, like I couldn't look entirely the other way. But we're burying the lead here because you are absolutely correct. There's a fight that happens in this warehouse where they're cutting cubes of ice, and that's an amazing action sequence. There's a scene where these thugs try to mug her and her buddy while they're doing the street performance, and she uses her shawl as like a fight prop, and it's just so well shot and executed that I forgive everything that's happened before it because of how well shot and executed that fight was. And I mean, you're not going to be surprised by anything that'll happen necessarily in the movie. I don't know, what was the relationship with that sort of chubby kid? Was that like an adopted brother, or
he was another orphan? Because they were living at an orphanage.
Right. Okay.
And
so
he was just another
befriended her.
Yeah.
And at some point you could say, was he like taking advantage of her because using her skill set to make money?
Both.
No, he looked after her.
He did.
And she looked after him. It was a mutual.
It was a mutual thing. However, he was and they also show that, you know, at the beginning he might have looked like he was benefiting, but he was actually giving his money to his adopted aunt, her mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
He called his aunt. That's right.
Yeah.
So they weren't brothers.
And again, I'm going to regurgitate some stuff I found online. They were doing, they intended in the movie to do split scenes. How scene for scene it was copied from some Bruce Lee movies, but it was too expensive to get the rights to use that.
Right.
So like the warehouse scene with the cardboard boxes, the ice warehouse scene, they were going to put Bruce Lee movies side by side, and her moves were to exactly mirror and time exactly what was happening in the Bruce Lee movie.
And they established that because when she was little, she was raised
Watching.
by the TV, and she watched Bruce Lee movies, and On Back was in one of the movies.
On
that she
Back was
watching.
one of the ones that I watched.
So it had to have been before this,
Yes.
right? That's why, yeah. So, and maybe you could buy that she watched a movie over and over and over again. She could figure out the moves. But then it goes to, she sees her dad sword fighting.
And becomes amazing.
Becomes an amazing sword fighter instantly.
See, at the beginning, some of it was more explained, that she lived right next door to a Muay Thai academy.
Yeah.
And that she was picking that up there. But then...
Again, that would be weeks and months.
Right. And then in minutes, she's an amazing sword fighter. Yes.
And again, like, we're asking hard questions of a movie that doesn't deserve that necessarily.
We're getting too deep. Too deep.
And it does have that thing, and this definitely happened in Ong Bak too, where the movie's tone is a little bit strange. It'll be kind of light and goofy for a while, and then all of a sudden, super hard, super dark.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And, you know, the cancer-ridden mother who they've been struggling to get medication for through the whole movie is unceremoniously slaughtered by the bad guy at the end of the movie. I guess if there was a thing that surprised me in the movie, it was that. But then her dad is there, and all is well. This dad that she's never known really her entire life.
And then they never explain. When Mom's in communication with him, he never comes back from Japan for his special needs daughter and the woman he loves.
No, and like exactly, they love each other deeply, but they can't be together. It's Romeo and Juliet, and this crime boss is standing between their love. But really?
Yeah.
Like, really?
He was clearly a wealthy mobster in Japan.
Yeah.
He couldn't have sent them a plane ticket?
Or just, if you love them, be with them. Disappear with them, or like have this confrontation 15 years ago. Or however old she is. She's a teenager, I think, when this is playing out. Yeah. So, it's a dumb action movie. And you know what? There's lots of dumb action movies, and I can watch and enjoy lots of dumb action movies. I hold this one's feet a little bit more to the fire for personal reasons. But I'll finish where I started. If you want to watch some well-executed action sequences, check out Chocolate.
I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Right. Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Or try not to take it personally.
In the bygone era of feudal Japan, Ogami Ito, the shogun's executioner, had glory, honor, loyalty, and a family. Until everything was taken from him. Everything except for his son. With his young son in his arms and his sword at hand, Ito sets off on a journey to avenge the death of his wife and clan as an assassin for hire. The deadliest duo imaginable is a father and son who could take on an entire army, known far and wide as Lone Wolf and Cub, walking a thin line between life and death, cutting down all who stand in the way of revenge. They take on corruption, villainy, ninjas, samurai. Anyone is a target for the right price.
So, Lone Wolf and Cub is one of the movies that you recommended to me that I liked the most of all of them, by a large margin. I was quite surprised by it. It turned out that I had seen it like when I was much, much, much younger, and it was called Shogun Assassin.
Yeah.
It was like a rental. This was back when I was like in Alberta still. This is in the 1900s. This was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
I'd barely remembered it. But the cool thing about it, like I think I said at the beginning of it, is it feels like an Eastern Western. Like this guy is traveling across the lawless land, finding these different communities and getting in these different adventures. And the only thing in his life that softens his hard edge is this little kid that he's taking care of.
Yeah.
And this is a guy, I wrote down one of the, wash your neck and wait for my blade. Like, he is hard news. And this was just part of a 6-picture series from Japan. It's like their version, around the same time Clint Eastwood's doing his Dollars trilogy in Italy.
Yep.
This is where all of these assassin movies, or lone wolf movies, are coming from. And I feel the spirit of them being very similar, but whereas the Italian westerns had to pull back, Lone Wolf did not.
They do not.
This is incredibly violent and incredibly sexual in a way for movies made in the 60s and 70s. Honestly, kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I knew he's going to be chopping people with his blade. I wasn't, oh my God.
The spurts, the copious amounts of...
Yes, exactly. The anime level of blood and the obsession with titty that sort of quietly threaded through the movie. And in a way, because it is exploitive, but it doesn't feel exploitive. It just feels like legit to the world that we're being presented. I understand, again, especially after watching the movie, you're comparing it to The Mandalorian, because this is an incredibly tough guy who is put in charge of this child. But in this case, it is his child, and the establishing relationship scene between he and his child are, he asks the kid, would you like to live this life with me? Or would you like me to just kill you right now?
Yeah.
And there's no way the kid's old enough to understand.
Well, he says that. I know you don't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Choose the ball or the blade.
Yeah. And you believe him. Like, if the kid had chosen the ball, he would have taken his head.
Yeah.
And that is fucked. Like, that's crazy. Like, his character is insane. He's got this Klingon value system, which I usually don't much appreciate in leaders. But once he's committed to the kid, after the kid made the right choice of the blade, he will walk through fire for that kid. He will kill every person in the world if that is necessary for that. That kid is the safest kid in the world once that commitment happens. So, yeah, it's based off of a manga, I believe, which
that's what they say. Yeah,
might have been based off of a legend. It feels like an archetypical kind of adventure. He goes from place to place with these kids, and he gets mixed up with different bad groups, and he has adventures, and it feels fragmented because it is.
Yeah, it's a bunch of books put together.
Yeah, and especially if you watch Shogun Assassin, it's actually a bunch of movies cut into one movie. This one is supposed their flagship adventure, I believe.
Yeah,
and by all accounts, it's the best, but worth of getting. And right now, the only way to get it is through Criterion collection, and it is fucking expensive, but I would love to get my hands on it. I mean, I'm not right now willing to pay $60 for one movie, but of the movies you recommended, it was the one that knocked me over.
And do you think you like it because of the good storytelling?
I mean, definitely, and the vibe of it, just because it's very visual,
right?
It's very intense. Again, I go back to the Sergio Leone westerns. There's all these establishing scenes and face-off scenes and confrontation scenes, and they feel so iconic.
Yeah,
like they feel like they've somehow always existed.
Yeah. Many of these samurai movies were known for their good stories, and that's why Star Wars and many of the spaghetti westerns ripped them off.
Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven. The Duelist, The Fortress became Star Wars.
Yeah.
Mandalorian's ripping this one off. It's because they had pretty good stories, and they were iconic.
Yeah.
And I think this movie still holds up pretty good.
Yeah, it really does.
I remember stumbling across it as a kid. A friend of ours had one of those massive satellites in their backyard. Sleepover. And we're flipping through trying to find anything that we can get a signal. And there's this guy, a samurai, with a little kid chopping people up. And we're going, oh, we're in. We're watching this. We're staying up. Let's watch this. And then over time, we realized that we were watching a channel that specialized in these kind of movies. And it was a series. There's more of these. Oh, yeah. We're just eating this up. Yeah, let's have the next one. Let's watch the next one.
I'm almost surprised, and forgive my ignorance if I'm wrong, but this isn't like a James Bond type of figure. You could just pick this up and reinvent it. Like, there's something timeless about the storytelling,
right?
And like the presentation. I mean, I'm sure people, like, they have their favorite James Bond, would be really connected to one actor or another, but really, it could be a comic book or a TV series that just went on and on and on, and just showed us more darker corners of this world, and taught more bad people lessons on how it's a really bad idea to mess with this little kid.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that funny? As time goes on, the kid gets involved in the killing.
And he loves it.
Yeah, he's an accomplice in a.
I don't want to downplay, though, that it is incredibly violent and sexual. And if you're not down with that could rub you the wrong way. It was violent and sexual in a way that I was actually kind of surprised by.
Yeah.
Some people...
How about the filmography? I thought it was filmed great for the day.
Oh, yeah. The cinematography is, like, outstanding. And I keep on comparing it to Sergio Leone, and maybe I should compare Sergio Leone to it. It would
Probably.
be more accurate. But the landscapes, the vistas, like him slowly approaching with his cape kind of catching in the wind.
Yeah.
My boys are obsessed, or were obsessed with Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
I think Kung Fu Panda
borrows
took a
from
lot
this?
out of
Oh, for
this.
sure it
Like,
does.
obviously nowhere near, but this image that Poe has of himself walking through the Badlands, just having these adventures. Totally this.
Totally.
Totally this. They couldn't reference it directly because it's a kids movie, but like, there's just a base level of this is awesome.
Yeah.
The effects are a little bit strange in that maybe they're not believable. Like some guy gets stabbed and like it's a fountain, like, and it's got that sort of air hose where you can
it makes the noise, the air,
you
the
can
squirty
hear
noise.
the air forcing the blood out of these hoses.
So do you think that's just a limitation of the technology of the day? We're going 50 years back, 50 years.
But it would have still been a choice to use that sound effect. Like,
the squirty sound effect.
I don't know if you would have created a different spurt effect for the blood, but it wouldn't sound like. It's not a garden hose, right? But they lean into.
Oh, they really do.
and again, not necessarily. I'm not taking away from it. I'm saying like it's a little bit janky as a special effect, but it fits with the world of the movie fine. Like I wasn't like fake. I was just like, holy shit, that's a lot of blood, you guys.
Yeah.
But some people, find the ludicrousness of it, like that takes them out of it. But I look at Quentin Tarantino and Kill Bill, right?
Yeah.
He does exactly that. And I don't know this, but I have the feeling if I was to ask Quentin Tarantino...
Has he been influenced by these movies? Oh, absolutely he has.
Well, that and 6 more, much more obscure movies that I've never heard of.
That's right.
But I can't help but feel like the handling of the sword effects, especially in Kill Bill. Again, I think the influence of Lone Wolf and Cub is still being felt very deeply today. Like, in the way that Billy Jack has been completely eradicated, this is not.
No.
Like, this is still vibrant and alive. I think, like I said, a fresh take on this, which arguably The Mandalorian maybe is, would strive, I think, today.
I'm surprised someone in Hollywood hasn't jumped on this and tried to reboot it.
Yeah. Or there's all sorts of, do it post-apocalyptic, or do it like, there's all sorts of different, but the basic structure, hard man, who is only bit of softness is this little kid that he protects, and put them on any game board in the world and just watch how shit plays out.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Like 100%. And I mean, I expected to like it, and once I realized it was Shogun Assassin, like a smile came to my face, but like this movie overperformed for me. Like, it's not deep, it's not intellectual, but it is pure cinema. And even if I didn't have the subtitles to help me with the language, the storytelling is so pure form, you could follow it.
You could follow it, absolutely you could.
Like, maybe you wouldn't get the nuances of some of the dialogue, but there's not a ton of it.
You'd know where the movie was going.
Yeah.
You would.
Yeah, they're in this town, and this guy wants some money from him or something, and now this woman wants to breastfeed the child for some reason. That's a strange scene, but not uninteresting, I suppose. And there was never a point in the movie where I was like, where are we here? Like, why this now? Like, whereas Chocolate definitely had that, and Billy Jack was almost nothing but that. This one stayed the course for me. It's very simple and very straightforward in how it's going to, entertain and titillate you. And it does the job. And I don't know what more we can ask of a movie than that.
And that is actually probably one of the reasons why, as a kid, I loved this whole genre of samurai movies. Loved them.
Yeah. Hard Boiled?
Yes. John Woo.
There's a classic scene in Hard Boiled with this guy going into a hospital and grabbing a baby and getting out of the hospital, and this incredible epic firefight taking place with a baby in his hand. And again, I can't help but think influence here. I mean, it's a different world that they're playing in.
Yeah.
But it adds stakes that while he's swinging this blade and blood is flying everywhere and limbs are flying everywhere.
Still protecting the kid.
In his other arm is a toddler.
Yeah.
The stakes will never drop for that. Like, you're always going to be on board. You're always going to cheer for him. You're always going to be like, yes.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Lone Wolf and Cub, unfortunately, like I say,
hard to find.
It's not easy to get your hands on. It might even be easier to get your hands on, quote, Shogun Assassin than it is Lone Wolf and Cub. But if you can get your hands to it, Rank and Review fully endorses.
100%.
Sorry, did I mow over you? Is there anything else you wanted to say about it?
No, that is, I endorse it too, but you're going to have a hard time finding it. You're going to have to work for it.
Yeah, unless you can pay the money, yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't you afraid of getting hurt?
I didn't make the cheerleading team.
Boys are different from girls. No girl has what it takes to be a boxer.
You're embarrassed. You have lost your mind.
Sorry. Don't be sorry. Don't ever be sorry.
So what does it take to be great, I mean?
A real strong will.
You know, they say love kills you in the ring.
I love
Are you scared of me?
you. No.
That's funny, you look scared. Inside, you know yourself?
I do.
Then that's all you need.
So, in September, Rank and Review will turn 10. And I have dozens of subscribers, by the way. There are dozens of people listening to this free podcast. I'm doing it for me in a lot of ways. This is like just justifying my ridiculous movie collection and justifying, you know, my love of cinema and just putting it out in the world. Maybe people will find it, maybe they won't. I don't necessarily regret it. And over 1,300 reviews deep, I find myself thinking about Girlfight quite a bit the last couple of weeks and how it completely undoes me as a critic. I first saw it when it was a relatively new movie. I believe I saw it at the Broadway Theater. And I thought, that was a charming movie. Keep an eye on that director. And this Michelle Rodriguez, I bet you she's going to be going places, right? And then I picked it up at like a rental place where you can buy like, you get 5 movies for $12 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the pile. And it sat on my wall and it sat on my wall. And we ended up doing it for the podcast. This is my excuse to revisit Girlfight. And having seen a lot of Rodriguez's work subsequent to this and knowing where that director went, there was not a whole bunch heroic like post this. Michelle Rodriguez has done great for herself, but she is the same person in every movie, every single time. She's either, you know, she's got a hard edge and a chip on her shoulder, but a heart of gold, or she's got a hard edge and a chip on her shoulder and fundamentally is wicked. But that is all that she is bringing to the table.
One trick pony.
And look, if you want someone to do that for you in your movie, she will bring it for you. And there are actors who are that way. Like Christopher Walken never disappears into a role. As far as I'm concerned, I'm always looking at Christopher Walken. But I dig it. The thing is that I watched it when it was new, and I rewatched it 2 or 3 months ago now. And right now I'm struggling to bring up plot points to talk to you about. It's one of the most whatever fine movies that I can think to bring. And it wants to be this sort of like girl power Rocky kind of picture, right? Where, you know, she's down in the dumps and put upon and weak at the beginning of the movie, but she finds her center, she finds her strength, and she's victorious at the end. The way I looked at the movie now is that it was all preordained. She knew that she was better than everyone else, and that it was all going to work out for her. It just seemed like she'd read the script before. And again, maybe this is because I've just seen too much Michelle Rodriguez films. And then over above that, and I think this is the most unforgivable sin of the film, the fight scenes don't feel legit to me. When she's in her corner getting instructions from her coach, who's giving a decent character performance in that end of it, I don't believe that she's in the middle of this like intense physical confrontation. She doesn't look hurt. She
Gassed?
doesn't look tired.
No.
She doesn't look sweaty.
No.
She doesn't look beat up. She doesn't look like she's about to beat someone up. She looks like she's an actress delivering lines, which is what she is. But I can't understand how I really liked the movie when it first came out, and now I don't hate the movie, but I would say I am completely indifferent to the movie. Like, even if I was to say one of my nieces or my goddaughter who's like, you know, of that age where they could really lock on to a girl power movie, you could do better. In a way, I feel like this is a little bit of a condescending girl power movie, in that in order to up the stakes, she not only has to fight a boy, but she has to fight a boy that she likes.
Right.
Right? And I did a little bit of boxing in my day, and maybe things have changed. Maybe it's based on weight. But in my day, boys did not fight girls, and girls did not fight. Like, they was separated by gender. And it made sense. Like, the percentage to weight and muscle mass, I think that there's a reason that the gender, I don't think it was mansplaining or sexism. And I think that the movie goes out of its way to, like, top itself. And it's not just a boy she has to fight, but a boy that she loves. I don't know, it started to make my teeth hurt, and it started to make me resent myself for ever thinking that the movie was anything. But again, when this director and this actress are just hitting the scene, you're kind of like, good for you guys, well done. But Rodriguez has gone on to much bigger, better things. The director, and I'm going to get her name here, sorry, Karen Kusama was the writer and director.
Right.
She moved on almost exclusively to film, and I think she did that Charlize Theron Aeon Flux.
Oh, she did Aeon Flux, okay.
I think, again, I will cut that out if I'm wrong about it. But, you know, she's working, and she's, you know, making a living, doing what she wanted to do, so good for her. But it's not like she became the next Spielberg. And Michelle Rodriguez is working. She's got the Fast franchise, and she'll be doing endless, you know, variations of Michelle Rodriguez for years to come. But it's just not easy to get excited about. And that is my entire thesis about this movie. It's nothing to get excited about. If you have a 13 or 14-year-old girl who, like, is looking for a girl power movie, I guess, but I have to believe there are better ones than
There are
this.
better ones. So going into this, knowing Michelle Rodriguez was in it, I was already skeptical.
Oh, not a fan.
Not a fan of Michelle Rodriguez.
Okay.
And for all the reasons that you have pointed out. All the reasons that you've pointed out, she's got one dimension, and in the first 10 seconds of this movie, I get Michelle Rodriguez, pouty, angry face, looking out on her angry eyebrows.
Yeah.
That is the epitome of Michelle Rodriguez right there, and I knew where this movie was going. And I understand. I think this was her first movie.
Yeah.
And Michelle Rodriguez is toned down because she isn't quite her yet. But it was still enough of her that I'm going, yeah, this is another Michelle Rodriguez movie.
And even right out of the gate, I have a hard time believing that everybody at that school doesn't respect her and like her. Like, the script is making them not like and respect her, but like I didn't really believe the conflict there. Like, she seemed like she would be, there was nothing off about her. There's nothing off-putting about her. Like, she needed to have a chip on her shoulder. She needed to have like a reason that people didn't like her, other than the script needed her to be down and out so that she had a place to go for the third act of the movie.
Yeah. And you picked on it too. The fight scenes weren't incredible. There was nothing special about them. They weren't filmed the worst, but there was nothing special about it.
I feel like you need to make a choice, especially when you're doing like these arena type fights. Everybody knows what a boxing match tends to look like. When The Fighter, another movie we're going to talk about, Russell just said, how do they televise it? What do they usually do? How would you usually see it? And we're going to do that, and we're going to put 2 extra cameras in the ring. And that was his approach.
Right.
This, I didn't really feel like, as much as it wanted to be a Rocky movie, anyone had done their research for like what they wanted in the ring. If you look at Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull, there's nothing realistic about how the fights are shot. It's almost like over-choreographed, slow black and white, but you're seeing all the sweat dripping off of these actors, and you're seeing their face contort when they get hit, and you're seeing the blood spatter on the ground, and you believe that these two people are getting hurt.
Right.
And not that I want Michelle Rodriguez to get hurt or whoever she's acting with. I want to believe that there's danger in that ring. And that's something I don't know that the movie ever really accomplishes.
Nope. I never felt like, ooh, my character's getting beat up.
Like I like I said, very, very briefly took boxing, and like I quit because I kind of thought it was a silly game. From a perspective like psychology, I want to knock this guy's chin to the left or right far enough that it unhinges his knees before he knocks my chin to the left or right enough that it unhinges my knees. And like, you know what? Maybe there's better things I could be doing. But there is tactics to it. There is psychology to it. Like, I'm not one of these guys. I'm not a big UFC fan, as we discussed in the previous movie. But I'm not one of these guys, it's stupid, it's just a bunch of morons punching each other. No, I get that there's skill and that there's tact and that there's preparation and planning that goes into it. I just think that you should maybe put those skills and plans and preparation, maybe something else, but it's not necessarily just two people smashing into each other. And on some simplistic level, I think that maybe the director felt that that's all it was. And if you're going to make a fighting movie, your movie is called Girlfight, you have to deliver the goods in the ring.
On the fights, yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Even if the rest of the movie worked perfectly, which I am going to argue it doesn't, if the stuff in the ring is flat, which I am saying it is, then your movie is not going to work. So it's strange. Am I a bad critic?
No. I honestly don't know if I saw it when it came out.
Right.
When I watched it the other day, I feel like I watched it for the first time.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I don't really think I missed much years ago when it came out.
But it's really... main sin is, I think, its blandness. Like the previous Scrappy movie you and I talked about, Red Belt, and there was all sorts of problems with that movie, but it wasn't necessarily boring while you were watching it. It was like they knew what they were talking about anyway, and the fight scenes, as brief as they were legit.
Yeah.
And so as much problems as I have with Red Belt, it might arguably have more script wrong with it than Girlfight. I think it holds together better.
I enjoyed it more than this movie.
Yeah. I mean, they both are seriously flawed, but yeah.
You know, you talk about Billy Jack was a chore to get through.
Yeah.
I'll give Girlfight the fact that it wasn't a chore. I watched it. I probably won't watch it again for another 20 years.
It just lays there.
Yeah. Right. It's good. I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, someone else might get more out of it. And again, if you weren't worn out on Rodriguez, which I wasn't when I first watched the movie, but it's interesting. I was like, first time, that's decent. Like, and I'm going to keep an eye on this Michelle Rodriguez, and I'm going to keep an eye on that director. Right. Good job all around. And now I'm like, lame movie, lame whatever movie. I guess that's the difference between making your first sort of at bat and your fifth or sixth, I guess.
But you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to mature, and your tastes change.
It's true, but I'm not going to find out because I don't think I'll ever watch the movie again. But if I was to review the movie 10 years from now, what then?
I don't think it gets better.
Good to know?
Yeah.
This is the only thing I know I am good at. Don't take that away from me.
You can work. You can sweat. You can train. You can dream and never be better than good. But when the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Someone who knows, someone who wants me. Only the strong will survive. Reach for the best you have within. There is no compromise. You have to stand up and fight when the challenge is right. Through the tears and the pain, still the glory remains. You see the vision in sight. Put yourself to the test. Be the best of the best.
I'm gonna take your head
off. So my best description of the best is that it is the greatest 80s cheese-a-thon ever released in the 1990s. I'm saying that as an affectionate thing. This is like, I'm going to talk a little bit of shit about this movie, but I'm smiling and my thumbs are largely up. but I think that a lot of people will enjoy the movie for the wrong reasons. Like, I think you're intended to be inspired and invigorated and learn something about martial arts. And like The Best of the Best was really earnestly trying to be a hard, real world martial arts picture.
That came almost 10 years behind where it should have been probably.
Yeah, that. And the fact that it's hilarious. Unintentionally hilarious at times.
Comes even with its own catchy theme song.
Oh, yes. And that's very important for the 80s action movies. And it is so stuck in the 80s world. Like, the 90s didn't really had fully define itself yet. We were still early into it. And Eric Roberts at the time, like, he'd gone through his Oscar phase where he was this up-and-coming, like, golden boy.
Yeah.
And then he discovered cocaine, and he got a little bit arrogant, and he kind of burned some bridges. So it was like rocky time for him. And I think he was trying to reinvent himself at this point in his career. He still had fire and you know, wanting to do it, but he is overplaying his hand so hilariously in this movie. I don't think he's a bad actor. I'm going to blame some of this on the coke and some of this on actor desperation. He needed people to remember how amazing Eric Roberts was. And he is so, like, catastrophically, like, way far over the top at times that it is beautiful. Like, it's almost Nick Cage level. Like, it went so far past the line that it became accidentally brilliant.
Right.
There's this whole scene where he's like, "This is the only thing I got. It's the only thing I got."
And that accent that he has.
Just howling with laughter.
Yeah.
Howling with laughter. He gets his shoulder dislocated during the big fight. In Rocky, he's got the swell, and he's like, cut me, so he can see past the swelling and continue the fight. And this one's, pop my shoulder, pop it. And it is fucking hilarious. Like, not even in a bad way, in a please watch it, it's hilarious. The other problem is half of the American team that's being assembled and being trained by Darth Vader, by the way. James Earl Jones. I'd seen this movie several times before, had no memory that he was in the movie.
James Earl Jones was in the movie?
I mainly remembered the big event, the big sport events at the end. I know it's not the Olympics, but it's like this. Anyway, half of the team are legitimate martial artists, and half of the team are actors.
Yep.
And you can definitely tell who is who when they're shooting those fight scenes. We got an early role from Chris Penn playing this, like, shit-kicking cowboy dude.
The heavyweight.
Who's undisciplined heavyweight, but he's got a hard swing on him. And I think that over the course of the film, he's supposed to come off a little bit rednecky, but the ice was supposed to melt. And for me, the ice just never melted. Like, just... But the other two guys were just so clearly better athletes. And Chris Penn, like, he's an actor. He's just, like, he's not credible as maybe he could be a bar brawler, but I don't believe that he spends his days training to be this physical specimen, right? The whole movie is just full of cliche after cliche, montage after montage. There's a title track for the movie, the best, and it's so cheesy and terrible, and I fucking love it. Like, it's bad, but it's deliciously bad. It's like, lick the grease off of your fingers. This is not good for me. But I'm enjoying myself.
And you're right.
I'm ashamed of myself, but I am going to give a thumbs up review to The Best of the Best with the qualifier that it is not a good movie.
So, again, I actually discovered Best of the Best 2 before Best of the Best 1.
And you understood it, even not seeing the first one. It just still made sense?
Yeah, it did, actually. And it was cool. And then I went back immediately and found number 1. And to me, I just, in my mind, they were a join. They were...
Just should be one movie?
Well, maybe not one movie, but I liked them equally. They were good. One set up the other one.
Was Eric Roberts in the sequel?
He is. He's got a much bigger role in the second one.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And the cliche 80s montage with
several of them
with the rock and roll soundtrack kind of going. Oh yeah, it was so formula.
And Roberts is rocking a mullet that would make Patrick Swayze himself blush.
That's right.
It's hitting a lot. It's checking off a lot of boxes.
Oh yeah, and Eric Roberts was in full Eric Roberts form.
Oh my God.
What did Eric just say? I loved it. And as I mentioned before, it came in a time in my life where I was just beginning in kickboxing. And I found this kickboxing movie that was amazing.
Did they make this for me?
Right?
Yeah.
It was just like that. And it hit home at the time. I wasn't criticizing it. And now in hindsight, you're going, oh man, that was cheesy. But in this day, I was going, why was this never in movie theaters? This is awesome.
And it's funny how some things age and they're cheesy and they make you kind of wince. And some things age and they're cheesy and they just put a big smile on your face.
Absolutely. This one isn't, it's got cheese, but it isn't stinky, dated.
It's very, very what you would expect this type of movie to be.
For sure.
He's got to prove himself to his kid.
Yeah.
And all of the different characters have beats that they play. A hot note for horror fans, there's a scene with Chris Penn in a bar where he gets mixed up with this redneck-looking dude. That's Kane Hodder. That's Jason Voorhees.
Is that really?
He's fighting in that
Okay.
bar. Fun fact.
Wow.
It's just nice to see Kane out of makeup. You almost never see him.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. You almost never see him as himself. He's either got a hockey mask or a monster face or
Sure.
something like that.
Right.
So, you know, Kane Hodder fans, it's one scene, but there are people who would seek it out. And again, that's just another little sort of time capsule. Oh, look, there's Kane Hodder. Right?
So for fans of this genre, what would you equate this to? Like, if you like this movie, you'll like that movie. And I was thinking, if you like the Jean-Claude Van Damme one, the Kumite one, you'll probably like Bloodsport. You'll probably like this.
Yeah, and it's just as cheesy too. It's
Yeah.
right in that same cheesy. The weird thing is, like, Bloodsport was 1987 or something like that.
Yeah.
This is 1992.
Yeah.
And we haven't moved the bar at
No,
all.
no, not at all.
I also think there is some weird stereotyping that's happening here, right? The American team, which is a brand new team that's being trained, they're not very disciplined. Half of the job is like getting them to like slap them in the face and getting them to focus.
Right.
But the
Korean team.
Pardon me. The Korean team are like stoic, hard as fuck, getting like canes beat across their back
Running
and
in
chest.
chest deep snow with no shirts on.
It's just a little bit condescending, right? Like on both sides. Like no, I don't believe that the Korean team is that fucking out there, and I don't believe that the American team is that slapdash about everything. The truth must lie somewhere in between.
Okay, my one thing, even watching it back then, James Earl Jones, did he feel like a martial arts coach to you?
He felt like a coach, but not necessarily like a martial arts coach, right?
Yeah, no, to me that was one of the more unbelievable. It just didn't fit.
And Sally Kirkland, the blonde bombshell quote, I'm not sure what she was doing in the movie other than they needed a girl in the movie, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
And then we get to the big showdown at the end. And we talked about in Red State how we didn't buy the big, it's not the Kumite, but the big event at the end.
Right.
Like, for a movie that's claimed to know so much about its subject, it kind of dropped the ball here. For everything we learned about the Korean team and everything we learned about the American team, things play out the way they probably should. The Americans lose.
Yeah.
But they lose so shadily that the Koreans give over the medals. They just hand them over.
Right.
They spent all of these years being tortured and beaten on these rocks, and they're willing to do anything to win. And when they win, they throw in the towel. And it's supposed to be a big emotional, aw shucks, tear-jerking moment, and it's not credible at all. At all. But you wanted it, like, while you're watching the movie, you're not fighting it at all. But on some level, you know it's bullshit.
Yeah,
Right?
It is. Yeah.
It's the best of the best. Don't overthink it. Like, it's the exact same approach when Lee and I reviewed Bloodsport, actually, other than the homoerotic underpinnings of the movie. This is like, don't fight this movie. You know? It's weird how, like, I was so shitty to Girlfight, which was like this indie, you know, feminist drama. And I'm giving all the rope in the world to Best in the Best. But in its own way, I think it's better at being what it's being than Girlfight is. I think that as much as it had aspirations to be Rocky, it kind of ended up being this cheese fest. But they got a franchise out of it. And even if you don't like it, I do think it will put a smile on your face. And a lot of movies don't even manage that.
Nope. I will still watch it if it comes up. I will watch it every time. I just looked on my phone to see if I could see if you could get the theme song.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't find it for download.
Oh.
I know you're disappointed.
Somebody somewhere has ripped it onto line. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, if it exists. There was this old Stephen King movie, Graveyard Shift.
Mm-hmm.
And they did this weird thing where they mixed bits of dialogue and sort of cut together this scratchy electro song over the end credits. And I always thought it was so weird. And I don't know why it popped into my head one day. I did a search, and sure enough, somebody had ripped the VHS audio off of it, and I could listen to it again. And there's a little plug for the closing music of Graveyard Shift. But, you like what you like. And this is not something that I'm going to revisit again and again. It's not one of my favorite movies by any measure. But as a time capsule to that type of movie,
for sure,
the best of the best is one of the best of those.
It is, absolutely.
So, not good, but fun.
Yes.
I feel like I'm mowing over you. Is there anything else you want to say about Best of the Best?
No, fond memories of Best of the Best, and for me it still holds up. I'll watch it from time to time.
Sweet.
I'm quitting, Shelley. I'm done fighting. I don't need it anymore.
It's sad that you let them take it away from you.
I was embarrassed. I told everybody I was going to win that fight and get back on track. I'm sick of being a disappointment.
Look, Mick, nobody's got heart like you. You're a very talented fighter. I want to give you a real shot. Make one last run at this thing before it's too late.
What about my brother? He's taught me everything I know. I can't do it without him.
With all due respect, he's too much trouble.
Jackie, get on the ground right now! He's a fighter! Break his hand!
Mick, I was doing it for you. You did it for me? What, this? Do me a favor, don't get nothing for me no more, okay?
You ready for a title shot? Not a stepping stone anymore.
He's using you.
You can't beat me. You had a hard enough time being you, and that's why you're in here.
We're gonna train, they gotta go. Why am I the problem? I'm his blood, I'm his family.
You're crazy.
I'm the one fighting. Not you, and not you. This is my shot at the title. I won't get another one after this.
Mickey has a chance to do something that I never did, and he needs me.
Okay, I'll see you in Mickey's corner.
This is your time. I had mine coming, I blew it. You don't have to. You'll make it why? You'll make it why?
So David O. Russell just laid a huge egg in Hollywood with this movie Amsterdam. He had like every famous person in Hollywood in it. It was a big prestige Christmas time release, and it bombed so hard that it may well have nadered his career. But in 2010, he won Best Picture for The Fighter, and even like before that, he was able to really cull amazing casts together. He always seemed to get first pick of whoever he wanted for his roles. People respected him more than they liked him. Right now, you can go on YouTube and look up footage from behind the scenes of this movie he did called I Heart Huckabees, where he was working with Lily Tomlin, one of the most gifted comedic actresses to ever fucking do it, and he is screaming at her with a level of disrespect that is so grotesque that it makes it almost impossible to respect him as an artist or a human being. Like, he's crazy. The weird thing is that even though people say that and agree that about him, they will line up to work with him. George Clooney, one of the nicest people in Hollywood by reputation, punched this man in the fucking face on the set of Three Kings.
Okay.
Because he thought he was being so bad to the background actors that he had to step in. And when Russell got in his face, he punched him in the face. So this guy is a weird dude. Like, one of his best friends, I guess, is Spike Jonze, who also does really strange Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
And he will not do the same movies twice. So typically on paper, when I see a movie called The Fighter starring Mark Wahlberg, based on a true rags to riches story about a boxer, this doesn't interest me, like, on face. But then you have Russell in it. What's he going to bring to the table? And I think what he brings to the table is that he is significantly less interested in what's going on in the boxing ring than what's going on in Mark Wahlberg's world. The fight that he has is to keep his girlfriend and protect her from his family.
Yeah.
To keep control of the aspects of his own career.
Right.
To have a corner of his life that he is allowed to have control of, that belongs to him and not this family who is just drowning him with love. Like, I don't think his mom and sisters don't love him, but I think they're killing him. Right?
Oh, I think his mom was using opportunistic.
She was liking the money that this was making, and she was absolutely, exploiting the lifestyle that this was going to be providing for her. But I do think on some basic level,
she loved her kids.
She loved her kids.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, that's what ends up being more interesting about it. The other thing is Christian Bale. Christian Bale got almost all of the attention of the movie. Yeah. And I've always thought Christian Bale was a really strong actor, and I've always been kind of so-so on Mark Wahlberg. And in this case, I'm going to go completely the opposite. I actually think that Christian Bale's performance is sort of like, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like, this is the Oscar performance of the movie. This movie is about me.
Well,
and it kind of distracts from the fact that the movie's not about that character.
But that character, the real life human being, was a person. Look at me, look at me. It's all about me.
And he did the same thing in American Psycho, right? But it worked for me in American Psycho because he was all artifice.
Right. I like Christian Bale, but I'm not going, it's a Christian Bale movie, I have to see it.
Right.
So I'm not that level of fan of Christian Bale.
Right.
And when I was watching this movie, it occurred to me afterwards, but here's where I'm going with this. I hate that man.
The character he's playing.
Yes. If I met that person in real life, I would want to choke him till his eyes popped out of his fucking head.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me, Christian's doing a pretty good job because he's making me want to hate this guy.
Yeah.
And I will also say that Mark Wahlberg did a great job too.
I think he inhabited the role in a way that Christian Bale was, I think on some level, look at the choices I'm making as an actor. Look at this performance.
Look at how much weight I lost for the character.
Exactly. Mark Wahlberg inhabited the part. He just lived the part. He was prepping this movie for years. He brought the project to David O. Russell. He was wanting to do something where he wasn't a cop, and the character was a little bit different than the one he'd already played. In a weird way, he's on his heels for most of the movie. I've said in the past that I tend to prefer Mark Wahlberg when he's playing an asshole or a bully. And I suspect that I prefer that because in real life...
He's not.
No, he's an asshole and a bully.
Oh, is he?
He's been arrested in his youth.
Okay.
For hate crimes.
Okay.
Like, he threw rocks at black children and called them the N-word when he was 15 years old.
Didn't know that.
And he assaulted 2 Vietnamese veterans and told them to get the fuck out of his country. And he's tried to make up for this in his later life, and he's tried to, he's been open about the sins of the past, and I can respect him for not hiding about it, but if we're not allowed to enjoy Roman Polanski movies, if we're not allowed, in the age of wokeness, why do we look past Marky Mark? Whatever. It's a different discussion. But in this movie, Marky Mark, I think, acts circles around Christian Bale because he just inhabits the part and does the job. Whereas Christian Bale is like, look at me. Look at this choice. I feel similar, and she's a decent actor, but Ashley Judd,
okay,
she can act, but I somehow see on her face her making these acting choices. And I can say intellectually, as someone who studied acting, that's an interesting choice. But I shouldn't see the choice. I shouldn't be there. I should just be writing the story with your character.
Okay.
And I am with Wahlberg in this movie, and strangely, because it's not typical with Christian Bale, I am not with Christian Bale. What works for me in the movie is the whole Amy Adams trying to elbow her way into this family.
Oh, yeah. I'm not taking any shit from anybody.
Mark Wahlberg finally digging in and saying, I want something for me.
Yeah.
And that is the fight of the movie. Really, it's way more interesting than the big fight in the third act of the movie, is all the character interaction.
Oh, this movie is not...
It's not a fight.
It's not about a fight. Yeah. No. Although the fight scenes...
well shot.
Yeah, it was good. But that's not what the movie's about. No.
So I like it. I don't think it was the best picture of that year. I don't think it's the best picture that guy has made. But I think it works more to watch the performances and the character work than it does as a Scrappy movie. It won Best Picture. Yeah.
And didn't Mom win Best Supporting Actress or something like that too?
Yeah, I think she did.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they were up against that year.
I don't have it in front of me. Again, I lost respect for the Oscars long before this, so I resent the amount of weight that they seem to carry.
Right.
But I did feel like David O. Russell sooner or later was going to get his Oscar movie, and it's interesting that this was the one.
Okay. Interesting. See, and I disagree with you a little bit, because I found myself hating Christian Bale's character so much, and I realized, I thought, he's doing such a good job. I'm into it. I'm believing it.
Yeah. He, on some level, knows that he's a leech on his brother. And he does love his brother, too, by the way. He's not like this malicious, evil person. But he is aware of it in a way that his sisters and his mom seem to be able to filter away.
And Mom's blissfully, not blissfully, she chooses to look the other way and ignore what her son's doing.
Well, and, pretend that she doesn't have this iron clasp, control over him.
Right.
She does. She just doesn't like it when being confronted with it.
Yeah. The whole family.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even the husband.
But Amy Adams finds herself in this position where she falls in love with Mark Wahlberg, but that's not enough, because she has to prove herself to not just his mom or his brother.
Like 7 sisters.
Everybody. And they're all standing back with their arms folded, looking at her with suspicion, when they're all terrible. They're all terrible to him. She's like the one person who is providing him good
advice and support. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I'm more interested in than the boxing.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's advertised as a boxing movie. I grew up with a bunch of frontiersmen in the Legion Hall, and my grandfather coached boxing. So I know that environment. I know what it would be like, and I think there's some interesting characters and some interesting stuff that can be said. How do you train discipline into a boxer who just wants to throw fists and doesn't what is tactically, how do you get from one point to the other? Why is it that so many boxers are actually incredibly soft-spoken and calm people? You get this idea that they would be built of fury, right?
Right.
Let's get to know them. I have yet to see a boxing movie that does that.
Yeah.
In Raging Bull, he is just a monster, and in The Fighter, he is so internal that the rest of the movie seems to happen around him. But I do think that's the performance. I think that was the point. I think that he's the fighter, not because he's a boxer, but because everything in his life is a fight.
Yeah. Interesting to know that Christian Bale and Mark Wahlberg spent lots of time with the real family.
The actual people.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And again, I'm being hard on Christian Bale. He's good in the movie. I just think that he draws attention to himself in a way that nobody else in the movie does.
And for me, I thought that was him just being the character, because knowing the real man is that way.
It's funny because I made that same defense for American Psycho. My friend Jason DeBray was saying, I think he's terrible in the movie. He just seems so artificial. I'm like, he does seem artificial, but that's the character. The character is playing what he thinks a normal person talks and sounds like, and he's not doing a very good job. Right. And I get it. When the cameras are there, there's a faux documentary being filmed, you can see the Christian Bale's character. He better be front and center. He needs to be the brightest bulb in any given room, and he can't tolerate anything short of
no, and he's pumping himself up. He's talking about his glory days, and then he would catch himself and, but it's about my brother.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you are such an attention hound.
Yeah. But you just see him doing all these histrionics and all the work, and you see he's sort of accentuated the crow's peak on his forehead, and he's down to skin and bone. He's almost to the mechanic, or the machinist level of his weight, and he's always willing to go there physically, and I do respect that. But for some reason, I just saw him acting. I don't know how else to explain it. The drama too with the girls, and again Amy Adams, she's consistently strong. She's not always in great movies, but she's always good in them.
Yeah.
And you completely get why he's attracted to her.
Oh yeah.
And as much as she is, this gum chewing, sassy waitress, she can dish it out. She can dish it out.
She can.
And respect. We can really get behind that. And this director is really good at capturing those character beats. I think that's the thing he's the best at. Even if the movie's completely mad, like I Heart Huckabees, which Mark Wahlberg is also in, the characters are so weird and interesting and yet recognizable that you can get into it. If you're not into fighting movies, I think you would like The Fighter. anyway. And if you are into fighting movies, you might be a little bit impatient with it, but I think it's worth your time.
I agree with both those things. Yeah, it'll work for both. Yeah.
And that's a trickier thing to accomplish than I mean, the closest comparison would be Rocky. Rocky is by far the better movie and is much more about the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand why The Fighter struck a chord. But I think if you were to watch all of David O. Russell's movies, this one would stand out as relatively normal by contrast. It's good. It's solid. I'm not putting it at the top of the list, and maybe it should be at the top of the list, but I'm sort of grading it on that scale. I call this list Scrappy movies.
Yeah.
And maybe this is psychological scrap, where it's like a metaphorical scrap, but I don't think that's what we came here to see. So in this case, it's going to rank high, but not at the top for me.
Not ranking at the top for me, but way above Girlfight, that's for sure. And Girlfight and Billy Jack are at the bottom.
Well, let's get to that. Is there anything else you want to say before we get to the rank? I don't mean to cut you off.
No, we're good.
It's not that there isn't any fighting in the movie. We kind of talked about everything but the fighting in the movie. They actually do the scenes quite well, and like I say, you could almost buy that you caught like a broadcast of the fight. Like the grain of the film changes. Suddenly we're watching this on TV.
So what I read, again, I'm just regurgitating what I read, they got cameras that were 1990s style broadcast cameras to film on to get that effect.
Right. Because you do notice it right away. The film grain changes.
Yeah, it's by design, and it does. It looks like you're watching a broadcast.
Yeah, and I liked it. And again, it's sort of an aesthetic thing. It's not an obvious thing. I mean, you don't miss it, but it's just a nice touch.
And the touch is there for a reason. You know why they're doing that, because you're supposed to be watching a broadcast.
And most of the people, it's sort of the Truman Show thing. As the bout's happening, there are people that are there, and there are also people watching at home and just eating their hand while it's going on. So you're sort of getting off on it with them. Check out The Fighter. It's worth your time.
Definitely.
Salvador Frank. Thank you so much. We got it done. It took a couple months, but we got there.
We got there.
And it's a lovely evening out here. You guys probably may have heard some bird chatter or some pedestrians walking by, but the weather just dictated that we do this outside. And it's a free podcast, so suck it up. What was your least favorite of this group of 6 Scrappy movies and why?
Billy Jack.
What?
Yeah. Although it held nostalgia significance for me, it just doesn't hold up well.
No.
It was, like you said, a chore to get through, and I hold on to just a few snippets that I actually enjoy, and the rest of it is just, like I said, it's a chore to get through.
Yeah. There's 4 or 5 movies in this franchise. Billy Jack is the only one. I think there's one called Trial of Billy Jack, but I don't think you could get it. Maybe you could find a VHS copy of it, but I just think it's gone. I think it has been stripped from the record.
Yeah, they're just no good. they're not. So yeah, that lands squarely at the bottom, easily at the bottom for me.
Okay, and 5th place?
Probably Girlfight. That's it. How do you sum it up? Again, it wasn't the chore of Billy Jack to get through. But again, I've seen it now, and I don't feel I'll need to go back and watch it.
I think maybe it was a one and done. Maybe my mistake was revisiting it.
Right.
In 4th place?
No. It's a toss-up between, probably The Fighter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, I liked most of it. Hated Christian Bale's character. I wanted to choke the life out of that guy if I ever meet him on the street, but I guess for me, I wasn't sitting down to watch what essentially is a drama.
Right.
I was looking more for the action. So I guess my expectations were a little bit skewed going in. It was good. I struggled to find out why it won any Oscars in my mind. But again,
the acting was solid.
I don't know what it was up against that year. But yeah, no, I would probably put it there. Just for my enjoyment scale.
Okay.
Yeah. And then here's the tough one. Is it Lone Wolf and Cub?
We got Lone Wolf and Cub, we got Chocolate, we got Best of the Best 2 left.
Yep. So, what are we in, fourth place? Third place. Chocolate or Lone Wolf and Cub? I don't know where they land. Which one I liked better? I was pleasantly surprised by Chocolate, actually.
Okay.
Probably going to watch Chocolate again, so let's bump it up and let's put
Lone Wolf in
third.
Yeah. Okay.
Chocolate second place, Best of the Best in first place for me.
Wow, it made first place.
It did.
Okay.
And again, a lot of that's nostalgia, but I still enjoy it.
Well, we do have a different list from each other, but I don't think we're going to scrap over it necessarily, even though this is a scrappy episode. We're kind of on the same page. I think that we just scaled it differently based on our tastes, which is exactly what I asked you to do when you came here. So in sixth place, we are completely agreed, Billy Jack. I would not watch that again. I have a friend, Jeremy, who is a connoisseur of bad movies. He enjoys terrible movies. And there are films that come out of this age that I think could be nice companion pieces. Alice's Restaurant, I think, is insufferable. People love that movie. Zabriskie Point was this big hippie art house important movie of the time, and it's fucking unwatchable. And to add to that list, Billy Jack. It's just terrible. But it's so terrible and frustrating that I don't think I would even recommend it to Jeremy as a bad movie to watch.
Okay.
Like, it's not even so bad it's good. It's so bad that it's fucking frustrating. Like, this is pissing me off.
Yeah.
So no, thumbs down on Billy Jack. And again, if I saw it in 72, maybe I would have been different. Although I was -4 years old at the time. So fifth place is Girlfight. Again, like I said, I remember seeing it at the Broadway Theater and having fun with it. And then I watched it again like 12 years later, and I did not have like any fun with it. So I either just watch it once and never again, or just pick your battles with it. But it was a strange experience, my experience with Girlfight. But it was lucky to make fifth place, honestly. Billy Jack just, it made me angry. Whereas Girlfight kind of bored me, Billy Jack was starting to piss me off. So, in fourth place, all the way in fourth place, I put Chocolate. I think, again, I have some personal misgivings about it.
Right.
But I can't dismiss the action sequences and how well they're handled. And I do think if you just let go of that and watch it as a pure, look at how they technically executed these, look at the choreography, and this actress who plays the lead, I don't have her name here, but she is really good. She deserves to be Tony Jaa. She obviously didn't become that, but she was awesome in the movie. And for the work they put into the fight scenes, yes. But for the story and the script, it's in fourth place for me. All the way in third place, it's the Best of the Best. Sorry, but I did have fun watching it. But I mean, I couldn't honestly tell somebody that it was a good movie either. I'd say, watch this. It's so cheesy. It's so deliciously cheesy. You will have a heart attack from the cheese. But Best of the Best. And again, like, it sounded like I was being mean to Eric Roberts, but I genuinely enjoyed how bad his performance was. Like, it was too much.
Oh, it's Eric Roberts on point.
It was way too much, but I did love it. It's just like, wow. In second place, The Fighter, I guess, like I say, the fight was largely metaphorical, and this maybe didn't fit as comfortably on the list, but I did think it was a solidly put together, acted, made movie. It spreads a wide net. It can appreciate, action fans will find something to like in it, but there's also a lot else going on. I don't know, it might be the odd one out in the group, but I default put it to second place. Lone Wolf and Cub kind of knocked me over. Like, again, I'd seen it, but it had been so long that I might as well have not seen it. And like, I was thrown off by the level of the content, the sex and the violence in it, but in a way that I was pleasantly surprised. Like, wow, sometimes, I'm watching a movie from the late 60s, early 70s. They have a different way of storytelling. They kind of take their times. They sit down on the porch, they pour themselves a coffee, they clear their throat, and then they eventually get around to telling you a story.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to watching that, sometimes that can be like, would you please get on with it? This is not the case with Lone Wolf and Cub. It's like 90 minutes, it's tight, it's full of action, it's full of violence, and it's well done. It's aged beautifully. And you can't say that about The Best of the Best. Like, this movie's almost 50 years old. When Best of the Best is 50 years old,
it won't hold
will
up.
Be good to Only You and I.
Yeah, that's right.
So I actually, to my own surprise, put your choice of Lone Wolf and Cub in first place, and I would like to thank you for introducing it to me. So there it is.
You're welcome. And it is a great movie.
Yeah. I don't like it. You're not mad, right?
No.
Maybe the fighter's too high, but whatever.
No. This is good. It's individual tastes, but I'm glad you appreciate the Lone Wolf and Cub one.
It was a great discovery.
Yeah.
And now every now and then I have to go to the stupid Criterion website and see if they have a sale
Is there a sale?
I just can't pay $30 for a movie.
Is that the single movie or a box set?
You can get it as a box set of all of the movies too, yeah. But you can also just buy Lone Wolf and Cub, and usually they're for a Blu-ray. It's like $30.
Right.
And to ship it here too, right?
Right.
But then, like, once a year they have a random 40% off sale, and then every now and then I just bite the bullet. But I'm a frugal guy. I like getting my movies at garage sales and consignment shops, and $2 a pop was minimal investment for me. Girlfight cost me probably $2, and just for the conversation we had, I say money well spent.
And just because I'm looking on Amazon to see what Lone Wolf and Cub is going for.
Oh, please do tell. I'm going to guess 30. If it's available.
Well, I haven't even found the movie yet. There's posters and books. Let's see about the movies. A lot of graphic novels that have been done.
Manga, yeah. See, it's
no more modern graphic novels based on it.
Well, like I said, there's plenty of story to tell in that world.
Oh yeah, you can't even find the movie. The DVD? No.
Yeah. No. My guess is Criterion has the rights. They have the rights to the Scorsese movie, The Irishman.
Oh, do they?
It's one of the only Scorsese movies I don't own. And it's not even one of his best movies, but it irritates me because I have all of his other movies, but I don't want to pay $40 for The Irishman. I'm sorry.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Oh, okay.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
But you can't own a physical copy of it, right?
Right.
And I'm a collector because of who I am as a person.
Something hard copy.
Thanks for being here, Salvador.
Thank you for having me.
Let's sign off.
All right.
Congratulations, you have reached the end of episode 231 of Rank and Review, and I really appreciate your ears. And as I said at the beginning, this podcast drops every 2 weeks when we're running anyway, every other Wednesday, and that leaves a gap in between that you can fill with other podcasts. Friends of the show, the Terror Table podcast, the Shelf Shedding Movie Show, and A Lifetime of Hallmark are quality podcasts that deserve your ears. So, when you're not listening to R&R, maybe give them a chance. In the meantime, as usual, send your feedback to ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. My name is Larry Parsons. I am, as always, your host and random Canadian. Check out the website at Ranknreview.ca. Tell a friend about the show. And stay awesome. Thanks for your ears, you guys.